My name is Matt Klein. I am Vice President for DC Norris North America. And as Robin stated, I'm here to talk to you about the case study with the FIFA 2022 World Cup. So how do you make 200,000 meals per day efficiently? That was the question. That was the task that was given to us by our customer, where they were servicing the workforce, the spectators, the VIP suites, catering all the outlets as well as the restaurants. And the key to this is the food has to be consistent, has to be safe across the board, day in and day out. Now, this isn't just a month-long event. There's time leading up to the event and there's time after the event. So this encompasses about 2.5 years worth of work at the site in Qatar to fulfill the FIFA 2022 requirement. Now, there is a time limit to that. And the key here also for our customer with the remit was to ensure that we don't overextend their resources. And how do you do that? How do you maximize your resources? Where a typical solution would have been somewhere around 30 personnel and 60 tilt skillets, we were able to do that with 1/10 of the resources with 4 personnel, along with 6 kettles with our jet cook and recipe manager systems. So in defining some of the standard equipment and terminology, so as we go along this journey, you can understand where we're at, where we're going, and the final result, we're going to define some of the standard equipment. So steam kettles used alongside tilt skillets are surface heating items where we use conduction from the surface to the product to heat. And essentially what this can create is burn-on for product, which can increase your cleaning times as well. Your standard temperatures when you are going through the cooking process can reach up to 330 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere around 165 degrees Celsius. And I have a question for you in terms of the limitations of this, where how many of you have stood over a pot at home waiting for it to boil? Now imagine doing that with 130 gallons of water. It's going to take some time. It's going to take energy. You only have a certain amount of surface area to do that in. So what we offered to our client was jet cook technology. And here we're going to define jet cook technology for you, where this is a highly efficient method of steam injection. In terms of the heat up time, we can go from ambient to boiling in 7 minutes for 130 gallons of water. Now, again, it's something that is a lower temperature, It's something where you aren't reaching the higher temperatures of 330 degrees Fahrenheit, but for most of your soups and sauces, you only have to get up to, say, 200 Fahrenheit. So depending on your application, you have your steam jackets that have the right application, and you have jet cook that can immensely help you raise your temperature of your product. So in terms of jet cook, this just gives an animation of what it is, where it has an insulated delivery pipe and a steam conditioning chamber, where the steam actually comes down and creates a vacuum. And what it does is it heats, mixes, and pumps all at the same time. And depending on the pressure, you can have a high shear or a low shear action with your product. What this does is, I'll get into starches in about 2 slides, is it helps you with your raw material usage. So in terms of jet cook, how does it work? It's no moving parts. You have the steam collapsing in your conditioning chamber. And what it does is it actually uses latent heat, where if you're familiar with thermodynamics, the latent heat, you're able to have a massive amount of energy collapse into your product, and that's where you get a 99.5% efficiency. And we actually have trial data where you're able to utilize 52% less energy than was required with traditional heating methods. And this as well has advantages over traditional steam injection, where if you have used traditional steam injection, typically what it does is it enters the kettle from the bottom, bubbles up to the top, and you lose a lot of your energy out through the top of the kettle, and it doesn't collapse into the product. So why is this important? If you take a look at this slide, you can see where the slide on the right, you have a typical steam jacket cooking at 85 degrees Celsius. And you have a jet cook cooking at a lower temperature. So you're actually starting out using less energy. And this is where your hydration of starches comes into play. On the right, you can see those white crystals. That's where the starches have not been fully hydrated. On the left side, what we're seeing, well, my left side, it's going to be your right side. What we're seeing is a matrix and a lot of surface area. So we actually have customers who have been able to reduce their raw material usage by 22 truckloads a year because of the enhanced performance of their starch. They're using less starch and they're able to use less fats, they're able to use less salts, and all of that adds up across the board. So again, this ties back into maximizing the resources without overextending them for our client for the FIFA World Cup. So that's how we get from 60 tilt skillets down to 6 kettles with the Jet Cook solution and Recipe Manager. So in taking a look at 200,000 meals per day, now that we know what some of the definitions are, we're going to look at the product and process analysis. So we're going to go through 4 example products. We're going to analyze at a high level the throughputs, and then apply the right equipment and technology to get to the end result. Because again, 200,000 meals per day have to be made consistently over 2.5 years throughout the entirety of the event. So when we work with our clients, we ask what products are going to be made. Typically, it's going to be soups and sauces, but there is going to be a carbohydrate. So rices, pastas, potatoes, that can be included as well. And we have to consider the cooking capacity for those. What defines a single meal? We're going to go through that, the weight of the meal and its components, and then what impacts the process. So it's going to be the cooking times, the transfer times, the cleaning times. And that's where the Jet Cook technology also has advantages, because you're not cooking at a high temperature with a surface. You are cooking within the conditioning chamber that, again, it simultaneously heats, mixes, and pumps all at once. And you don't have the burn on that you see typically with your steam jacketed kettles. So our first product that we're going to walk through is a simple cheese sauce. If you take a look through the different steps, we actually are able to reduce the steps for our client by cooking with the Jet Cook. And at the bottom, you can see where we are putting out 2/3 more product in less than half the time. And that's critical for our customer. At the same time, if you've ever cooked a cheese sauce, you know that they are notorious for burning on the kettle, which is going to increase your cleaning time and your transition times from one batch to the next. So this video, what it's showing is the Jet Cook in action, where again, you have that simultaneous heating, pumping, and mixing. And right there is the end result with a nice smooth sauce, thick sauce, creamy sauce, exactly what the customer wanted. And the nice part is we're able to prove this out for our client prior to them going through and installing the equipment. These trials were done in our own test kitchen, so we're able to vet it out, give them the numbers prior to the equipment going in for the installation. The next sauce for our client was a bolognese, and it was a 90-minute cook for somewhere around 650 pounds of product. And at the end of the day, it was more than 1,000 pounds of product in about 2/3 of the time. So the key with this shot, if you take a look at it, you can see that there's particulate in there, but it's a gentle action with the Jet Cook system that is actually pumping it and mixing it. So there's no damage. So you have tomato chunks that are in there that looks like it was made at home on your stove. So you're giving this level of quality through a high production environment to the end customers at the FIFA 2020 World Cup, or 2022 World Cup. The next one's a bechamel, mainly for this slide. If you look at the bottom line, you can see a trend where we're outputting more in less time. So again, you have 2/3 more product in half the time. And the last one is a big highlight because it's a butter curry sauce, but it was a 2.5 hour cook where we were able to bring it down to an hour on average. And then we also had further trials where we were able to bring it down to 35 minutes. So somewhere around 25% of the time versus the original 2.5 hours. And we're able to output more within that time frame. So we did this throughout their menu to help them out to then size the equipment. So that brings us to our next step, which is the throughput analysis. And this is going to be a very high level on the math. So we defined for our 200,000 meals, we defined one meal as 500 kilograms, which is going to be 200 grams of sauce and protein, 250 grams of carbohydrate, which is your rice. So what this came down to is an average cook and discharge time of about 1,100 pounds. If you run the math, it was 30 minutes based on our trials. So we need to have about 50 hours of cook time across whatever solution we provide to our client. When we put that forth, we calculated it out to 6 cooking vessels with just over 5,000 pounds of capacity. And with the over 5,000 pounds of capacity in a 12-hour shift, we're able to produce 126,000 plus pounds of product. Now, again, with the jet cook system, it makes this possible. Without it, we would need at least 12 kettles or up to 60 tilt skillets. So it's all about working smarter, not harder, because we have this 2.5-year window. We don't want to overextend their resources. And what this allows them to do is utilize this after the fact for their catering business. The next item we looked at was their carbohydrate. So in this case, it was rice. This could also be potatoes, or it could be a pasta. And for this, we utilized our Cook Quench chill system, which does use the jet cook system to heat as well, because you're having to heat up a lot of water to boil the rice. And there's a process of cooking, quenching, and chilling for whether it's going to be pastas, rices, potatoes, so that you're able to then add it to the meal. In this case, again, the remit, 200,000 meals per day. And this is the 250 grams of your rice. Based on a 3 times uptake for your water into the rice, we calculated that you're going to need 34 batches over the period of 1 day to get through this. So that means that we need 3 Cook Quench Chill units for the solution for the FIFA 2022 World Cup. Now, the 3 Cook Quench Chill systems, what they're able to do is output just under 120,000 pounds per day for a 12-hour shift. So the final step is applying the equipment and technology. So since the processes have been proven and the throughput's calculated, what we did was apply the equipment where we have a steam jacketed kettle. With our jet cook technology, we put braising bars in there so that you can caramelize onion, brown the meats. And we had an in-vessel high shear mixer along with agitation system, and then the recipe manager system. We haven't talked about the recipe manager system. And this is one of the keys to the success of the 2022 FIFA World Cup as well, because what this does is it ensures consistency across the board. Where we have load cells on our kettles, the kettle is smart. It knows exactly how much you're putting into it, and it has a tolerance for that as well. So with the system that's put in, your kettle will track that, and it will have printouts and reports, and it will track all of your temperatures to ensure that you're meeting the right temperatures for food safety, so you can produce those to the regulatory bodies that may govern the area that you're in. So through maintaining the full records, through weighing every ingredient that goes into it, you know exactly how that cook went, and you can track it day in and day out with your lots and batches. So the nice part about that too is if you ever had to override, you know who made that batch and you can hold them accountable. So for the 2022 FIFA World Cup solution, we had a mixture of 2 types of kettles ranging from 80 gallons to 130 gallons which you can see an example of the tilting kettle that was there actually down at our booth, right down the way. And there is a static version as well. And with that, this is a snapshot of the footprint that the 2022 FIFA World Cup solution encompassed. So as you can see, even though it's outputting a lot per day in terms of meals, it doesn't take up a massive footprint. And the nice part about that is we met the remit for our client. We didn't overextend their resources. We helped them to meet their goals for the 2022 World Cup and beyond that, actually. So some of the other items and product examples that we didn't talk about, they range from mac and cheese to sweet chili sauce to ratatouille, even to whole strawberries. The jet cook system is able to heat and pump whole strawberries without damaging them. So all of these advantages added up to a winning solution for our customer, where the jet cook was able to efficiently heat and reduce times. The recipe manager system was able to allow them to deliver consistent product safely across the board. And the Cook Quench chill system was able to allow them to deliver the carbohydrate to meet up with the sauces and soups for the 2022 World Cup.